Hi, I'm Anita Dowd, and I'm the Executive Staff Advisor at the Kentucky Commission on the Deaf and Hard of Hearing, which is a state agency within the Workforce and Development Cabinet that provides information, referral, and advocacy related to hearing loss. I'm also the current president of the Kentucky chapter of Hands and Voices. Hands and Voices is a nonprofit, parent-driven organization that is dedicated to supporting families that have deaf and hard of hearing children. Most importantly, I'm the mom to two beautiful daughters that have a hearing loss, and I'm the profoundly deaf child of hearing parents. So I've spent the better part of my lifetime on this journey. When we find out that our children have a hearing loss, we're usually overwhelmed. We're overwhelmed with questions about the future, information, and emotions. We're also overwhelmed with opinions from everybody that we know. When it comes to making choices about communication options, it's not an easy thing to do. The truth is, there is no one way that works for all deaf and hard of hearing children. There are just too many variables that come into play with our kids. We can't make a blanket statement like that. We have to consider the age of onset. We have to look at the degree of hearing loss, how well amplification works, even the personality of our child, and of course our family dynamic. The Family Communication Model Project is here to give you a glimpse into the life of families that have chosen different methods. We hope that by seeing these families, it will give you just a little bit more than just words on a piece of paper. It's actually a real-life look at these families and the way they communicate with their children. So, let's take a look at these families and their children as they talk to us about their journey and the decisions that they made and what got them to that place and how it all worked out for them.
I'm Susan Dorn. I'm originally from Wisconsin, but moved to Kentucky for our son to go to the Kentucky School for the Deaf. We have two sons. One has a severe hearing loss, and our other son has a mild loss. Both of our sons have different stories on how we found out their hearing loss. Jordan was found in the newborn screening. He got the screening twice just to make sure that he did fail. We were referred to the Children's Hospital in Milwaukee with him. He was fitted with hearing aids at 4 months. We struggled with him to wear his hearing aids. Our second son, Brandon, passed his newborn screening test. We found out in first grade he did not pass his school screening of his hearing test. They gave us a syndrome that they both have. It's called Pendrin syndrome for now. Basically, they just have a malformation in their ear. And Jordan has it in both of his ears, and Brandon only has it in one.
Yeah, my name is Jordan Dorn. I go to the Kentucky School for the Deaf. I'm 15 years old. I am also the president of the FFA at KSD. After graduation, I'm going to go to college to be a mechanic and work on cars and trucks.
My name is Brandon Dorn, and I go to Boyle County Schools in Kentucky, and I'm 14 years old. And in the future, I'm gonna try to be an astronomer or be a landscaper.
We just found some wonderful people in the community that were hearing, but just either had children that were hard of hearing or deaf, became wonderful mentors for us. Our interpreters knew deaf culture. They supported us when we weren't doing things right. They weren't afraid to tell us that we weren't doing things right, which you need that. You need people to tell you when you're not doing things right. I started doing things with the deaf community. I started learning sign language. We just had great professionals, we got involved with the Birth to 3 program, which is very similar to Kentucky's. The Deaf Mentor program, Hands and Voices. We kind of just fully jumped in once we were aware of it. I guess I wish, the advice I could give parents of newly diagnosed children is get immersed in both cultures. Be with the deaf culture, be with the hearing culture. It's only going to make your child better, and give you resources how they can survive in both of those cultures. I definitely know that it benefited all of us once we did that.
Good. And when Jordan came to KSD here in Kentucky, he just flourished like night and day.
Yeah.
Within the first week of enrolling into deaf school, he was just a different kid.
At my school, sometimes we do a lot more activities and a lot of socialization than, for instance, at public schools or what hearing kids might do. But I would rather have more socialization and friendships.
Both of our sons do have a hearing loss. Their communication is 100% different. Most of the time it's verbal language in our home.
It's okay for people to communicate different. Doesn't mean they're a different person. Everyone's the same no matter what they do, no matter what they talk.
As a parent, it's probably new to you that you have a child that has a special need. Don't feel guilty. You're always, as a parent of anything, you're gonna go back and go, oh, I wish I didn't do that. We all do that. Don't feel guilty. Don't be afraid to ask for help. We would not be where we are today if we did not have people help us. Just take it and put it in the back of your mind. You may never use it, but be open to it. Because it will help.
Don't be afraid to ask questions, even if you think it's a crazy question. Any question's a good question, because I'm still asking questions now. So, questions are never going to stop as they get from infants to young adults.
If hearing people can do extraordinary things and deaf people are exactly the same, that doesn't mean that they can't do it. They can always do it. So if they have a chance, let them do it.
My name is Tamika Leapart. I'm from southwestern Indiana, near Evansville, Indiana. And I am the mother of Jackson. He is 5 years old. What's your name?
Jackson.
Jackson. Can you spell it for her? How do you spell it?
J.
Use your fingers. How do you spell it?
A.
N, yes. He failed his first and second newborn hearing screen. We then went to have him tested at 4 weeks, and he was diagnosed with auditory neuropathy. We then were given resources at that time for early intervention. We were contacted by a parent guide with Indiana Hands and Voices, and she helped guide us through our next step. When we learned of Jackson's hearing loss, we didn't know what auditory neuropathy was. The audiologist did her best to explain it to us, but in that moment, we were shocked. And we really didn't hear everything she had to say to us. So we were pretty devastated. We had hopes and dreams for him. And then we talked with other people. And then that parent guide had a daughter who had auditory neuropathy. And she shared her story with us, and that helped. We were given information by our audiologist, a piece of paper, that had a list of the different modes of communication and said you need to make a choice. I honestly didn't know what they meant. So we did some research and we tried to make the best decision for him. We didn't know anybody that had a hearing loss unless it was an elderly person. So we chose auditory verbal therapy, went through developmental therapy through St. Joseph first, and then we had early intervention, that first 3 years where someone came to our home and worked with him, a speech therapist worked with him. We wanted him to talk. We wanted him to, we had a large family and none of us knew sign language or knew anybody that knew sign language. And so our goal for him was to talk. He was a candidate for cochlear implants, and so he got the cochlear implants bilateral. And I got in touch with a doctor that's retired that did a study on children who had auditory neuropathy and bilateral cochlear implants. And he suggested that cued speech would best benefit him. So I started looking into it, and I found the National Cued Speech Association. I found out that there were cue camps around the area that I could go to, and we went to cue camps and we learned how to cue. And they tell me that it improves lip reading. They tell me it helps with literacy. What I was noticing with my son is that there were like sounding words that he would get confused. Blanket, blinking, cone, comb, nap, bath. They sounded the same to him, and he just didn't know couldn't discern what I was saying. So with cued speech, he had a visual way of seeing that English spoken word. How do you cue goat? Do you remember? Goat.
Dude.
Goat. Here, use this hand.
Dude.
Got a lot of support from the National Cued Speech Association and the families that cue, those native cuers. They helped me with his IEP. They helped me with finding training for our teachers. So they've been a great help in, along the way we've had really wonderful people guide us through this journey. My advice 5 years into this is that in the beginning it seems so devastating, but it's been such a blessing. It's been an amazing journey. I have met awesome families, awesome kids, awesome teens that kind of show me a glimpse of what Jackson's future is going to be like. And it's exciting.
I'm Trish Freeman. I'm from Lexington, Kentucky. This is Ken, and we're the parents of 3 children, and 2 of our children are deaf and here with cochlear implants. Kenneth is our oldest. He's 24 now, and then we have Mary. She's hearing, and then Edward is our youngest. He's 21.
My name is Kenneth Freeman. I've been deaf ever since I was about 3 years old. I was diagnosed with mild progressive hearing loss at the age of 3, and I wore hearing aids until I was about 6 years old, and after that I was implanted with the cochlear implant.
Well, Kenneth started Montessori when he was about 3.5, and he was in school for about a week, and his teacher stopped us at pickup one night and wanted to talk to us, and she told us that she thought Kenneth had a hearing loss, that he didn't respond to her when she spoke to him unless he was looking at her. And we had noticed that too, but he was always so busy that we thought he was ignoring us because he just didn't want to be bothered with us. So they sent us over to Hearing and Speech, Lexington Hearing and Speech Center.
And the Lexington Hearing and Speech Center really helped develop my speech and really helped me interact with other students that were like me, and helped me interact with students who were able to hear.
The beauty of having the experience with Kenneth was that when Edward came along and started doing the same thing, we knew that he had the hearing loss. But he had hearing and he had speech until he was over 2.
He woke up one morning and he came downstairs and he said a word that he had been saying correctly. He made a consonant substitution, and he sounded just like Kenneth, and I said, oh no. And so we immediately took him, and so he was fitted with his first hearing aids just before he was 2.5. He had his first hearing aid, so a little bit quicker than with Kenneth. You know, we wanted to understand what was happening, and we wanted to gather information to make the best decisions that we could make to really ensure, to do our best to ensure that Kenneth and Edward could, you know, be successful in school, right? And achieve the things that they wanted to achieve academically and as individuals. And, you know, we thought about it, and so we actually visited the public school in the community where we lived at the time, and talked about, you know, starting first grade there and what would that look like, and met with the special ed teacher and met with the school psychologist who said, I want to do some testing. And so the school psychologist did this testing of Kenneth when he was 6, and calls us in after she gets all the tests scored and things, and sits us down and tells us that basically, don't expect too much. You know, Kenneth's IQ is borderline.
I just recently graduated with a master's degree in mechanical engineering from the University of Sydney. I really want to, at some point of my life, have an impact on the aerospace industry, especially with mankind's, you know, trip to Mars. It's coming. So we're going to get to Mars at some point.
If I think the advice I would give other parents, that's probably the biggest piece of advice is when something doesn't seem right,
Question
it. Ask, question, and say, I know better than this. I know my child. I know this isn't right. And don't just accept it because a professional, I mean, seek additional opinions, okay? Yeah. I mean, that's really, I think, a key piece of advice that I would give.
My name is Ashley Crouch. I am the mother of 2 teenagers. My oldest is Marshall, who will be 17 in a couple weeks, and my daughter is Mallory, and she is 15. She'll be a while before she's 16. Both of them have a hearing loss. My son has cochlear implants, and my daughter has hearing aids.
My name is Brett Crouch. We met each other in St. Louis at the young age of high school age, and we have 2 children. We found out that they had a hearing loss early on. That was really nothing new to me. I come from a family of deaf people. I have aunts and uncles who are also deaf, as well as my parents. So I felt very comfortable with that, but it was new for my wife. So that's who I am.
Marshall, when he was first born, we went on ahead and had him tested there at the hospital, and he failed the first 2 hearing tests, and we didn't know. He passed the 3rd one, and so we finally took him to an ENT, and they said that it looked like he had reoccurring ear infections, and they went on ahead and did a hearing test and found out that he had severe to profound hearing loss at 9 months old already.
My name's Marshall. I'm currently 16, 11th grade. I go to Lafayette High School. I plan to go to RIT in New York.
Mallory, we had already decided right away that we were going to get her tested. So as soon as she was born, I made the appointment with the ENT, And I think she was about 6 weeks old. I think that was the earliest that they could do it. And she had a mild to moderate hearing loss. And we had her fitted. She went to Lexington Hearing Speech Center.
I'm Mallory. I'm 15. I'm a sophomore at Lafayette High School. I do drama. I'm very theatrical. I think I want to go to school in Florida, maybe to pursue a theater career, possibly.
We just combined our experience with communication ability. We already were signing with them. I was already talking with both of them, regardless. And we both, obviously, were going to raise them to do both, to talk and sign.
I think it's important that my deaf kids sign, because that's the only way I'm going to communicate with them. And I think that also it helps with their speech therapy, because you're able to combine those two methodologies of, signing words, pointing to things, giving them a sign, and they can combine that with the speech therapy. And I think it's important to teach deaf kids that. I don't know, doing it without sign, I don't really know. I don't see how that could work, in my opinion. So I think most deaf kids will always have some sort of a delay or problem because of the, not perfect hearing. But there are different ways that you can do things, and we combine speech and signing, and if you can make that association between a sign and a spoken word, I think that helps, at least in my experience. But I think what's most important is that the kids feel approved and they understand that there's nothing wrong with being deaf. So my wife wanted our kids to be able to communicate with the world on their own without dependence solely on an interpreter, and that was her feeling. And so we worked it out. So I see that perspective, but I think what's important is, though, to still have that deaf community there.
I think it's really important to have a person, like for me, it's my brother, that knows what you're going through. Somebody who is kind of in your shoes, somebody that you can go to school with, or just you can talk to about things that you can't really tell your hearing friends. Somebody who understands everything, that all your struggles, all your hardships.
My advice to other parents is please sign at least a little bit. You don't have to sign everything, but just have some basic signs, the important things, to make sure that the kid feels accepted and loved, and included, and feels included in the family, to set up something, even just so that over dinner they understand what's going on. And don't leave them out. Let them know what you're talking about. That's, in my opinion, very important.
My advice would also be to give them every resources and tools that you possibly can think of. Interpreters, note-taking in school, just one-on-one, just simple one-on-one interaction makes that big difference in that child's confidence. And just to love them that they are.
Okay, my name is Melissa Harris, and I am the parent of a daughter. She's 18. Her name is Abriana. She goes to Kentucky School for the Deaf, and we use ASL at home.
Hi, my name is Abriana. I'm a senior at the Kentucky School for the Deaf. I really enjoy art. After I graduate, I plan to go to Gallaudet University to be a teaching major. I plan to get my bachelor's and my master's in teaching.
Abriana was, she failed her newborn screening tests 3 times in the hospital when she was 2 days old. So I was told that, I had a nurse that didn't have a very good bedside manner, and she came in and she told me that my baby had failed the hearing screening and that she had failed it 3 times and she's deaf, and there's that. But I didn't know anything about hearing loss or deaf people or nothing. As far as communication choices, I don't think I was really given that much. I didn't get a lot of information about the different areas of communication, I guess. It was all medical, it seemed like. It was all medical. Fix it. Before the good ear dropped out, she was not a candidate for cochlear implants. So that was kind of off the table. So we never really thought about that. And then whenever it dropped out, she was 18 months old at the time, and First Steps was starting to come in, and we had somebody that would come in once a week and teach us sign and teach her sign. So once she was a candidate for cochlear implants, we had already kind of gone down the other path, so we didn't want to change paths at that point. I went to Western whenever she was about 4, Western Kentucky University. So they had just started their ASL classes and stuff. So I was lucky enough to incorporate that into my bachelor's degree. I still didn't really meet anybody that was deaf. I feel like I met people that worked with deaf people, but I didn't really meet any deaf people. And we wanted that. And in one of my classes, we were reading a book, and it said that whenever you have a deaf child, you essentially kind of have to hand your baby over to the deaf community, not give your baby away, but because it's like the only culture that I can't teach my child her culture. She teaches her culture to me.
I think Kentucky School for the Deaf really helped me immensely. It helped my ASL improve. It helped my English skills improve. So I'm very thankful to Kentucky School for the Deaf for that.
My advice is, choose which path is best for you and your family. For me, it was ASL. And, we try to be involved in the deaf community, and we try to learn that culture and try to learn that language. Every parent tries to make the best decision for their child, and I don't think that any choice is wrong.
I hope that you enjoyed watching the families and their children communicate together. But I do want to say that it's very important that we keep in mind that our goal for our children is language. Our children need to be able to develop language, not just the ability to pronunciate words or hear sounds or sign fluently. Our children need to be able to use whichever method you choose effectively enough that they can convey their thoughts and feelings in a meaningful way. They also need to be able to take in what others are conveying to them. The best thing that we can do once we've made our decision is to keep a pulse on our child's language development and whether or not they are meeting their milestones. If they're not, we may need to change things. We may need to add something else or try something totally different. But like I said before, there is no one method that works for every child. So it's almost impossible for us to choose the appropriate method for them. We just have to watch them and keep close track of how they're developing and know that just because we choose one method doesn't mean that we have to stay with it. We may change 2 or 3 times before we hit the right thing. If you would like to talk to any of these families, to ask questions and maybe get more information about their journey and how they made their decisions, feel free to contact me and I will put you in touch with them. Our contact information will be posted at the end of this video. Please don't hesitate. We're here for you and they're here for you.